Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome and welcome. We are about to begin a new episode in Key to Redemption in Our Hands. This one is called Flipping It Over, or not flipping it over. What did I call it? Something with the flip. Now I'm skipped 2 episodes. We just concluded episode 9, and I'm skipping episode 10 and episode 11 just because I want to be consistent with the parsha. And this week is Parshas Chukas Balak. I'm skipping Chukas. I'm going straight to Balak. And we didn't do Korach yet. So we have 2 that we have to make up. With God's help, we'll find the time to make that happen. But right now, we're going to move on to this talk the Rebbe gave on Parshas Balak. Now, what's interesting about this talk was that it was given on Shabbos, which was the 17th day of Tammuz. So it's different than this year. This year, the 17th of Tammuz comes out next week, Thursday. This week, Shabbos is going to be Yud Beis Tammuz, which is a big holiday by Hasidim, by Chabad Hasidim. But this is a talk that was given on the 17th of Tammuz, which is a fast day. But when Mashiach will be fully revealed and we will have full redemption in the world, it will flip over and it will become a holiday. Oops. Is that on? Yeah. So, and that Shabbos, now when a fast day comes out on Shabbos, we don't fast. The fast day is delayed. It's bumped till Sunday. That's the way it generally works. Once in a while, on a fast day or before Purim is supposed to come out on Friday, we make it earlier on Thursday, but that's not the usual case. Usually it gets delayed. It moves on Sunday. So it was in 1991. The fast day of the 17th of Tammuz came out on the Shabbos. Now, the 17th Tammuz, in addition to it being a fast day because of some monumental problems that happened on that day, the onset of the exile, and on a 5 things the sages point out, 5 catastrophic things that happened on that day, and as a result of that, so generally it's a sad day, but it also initiates and brings in a period of time of darkness, 3 weeks, which conclude on the 9th of again with a fast day. And that's the commemoration of the destruction of the temple and the onset of the exile, current exile. So here we have a 3-week period of darkness, of sadness, a gloomy time, saddest period in the Jewish calendar, generally a time of mourning. But the good news is that when it comes out on Shabbos, when the first of those fasts comes out on Shabbos on the 17th of Tammuz, then the second fast, the conclusion of those 3 weeks, which is Tisha B'Av, also comes out on Shabbos. Now, what that does is that we cannot fast neither on those days, so it gets pushed off to the next day. The 17th of Tammuz is celebrated as a fast day on the 18th of Tammuz, on Sunday, and Tisha B'Av, which is the 9th of, gets delayed, and the fast day takes place on the 10th of, on a Sunday, both of them on Sunday. So even though it really lengthens the 3 weeks, because the 3 weeks then is 3 weeks and 1 day, but in general it's considered a little lighter because we didn't fast on the days themselves. It got pushed off by Shabbos. Now, what the Rebbe does, and that was the year 1991. It's unlike this year. This year it's going to start on a Thursday and it's going to end on a Thursday. May we already merit that it's going to be a holiday, because the verse, it's not just the sages, the verses tell us, there's prophecies that say that all these days that you are commemorating currently as sad days, as fast days, are going to flip over and they're going to turn into big, big, big holidays. And as the Rebbe is going to talk in this talk, they're going to be even greater than all the holidays we've ever had, because they are going to commemorate and celebrate the last and complete redemption. But what the Rebbe does in this particular talk is he's going to bring forth the depth of what Shabbos does when Shabbos comes out on the 17th of Tammuz. Not only is the Rebbe going to build the case not only does it delay the fast, but it actually dismantles the fast. Although if Mashiach has not come yet on that year, and we cannot call the exile has completely ended, we continue to fast. But because it began on Shabbos and the fast day fell on Shabbos, on the Shabbos, which is, so what it does is it weakens the fast, not just for that year, but it actually weakens it and weakens it and weakens it. And eventually the fast disappears completely. Not only that, the Rebbe is going to explain, it brings out the good that's buried in the fast, because this talk is a classic example of what the Rebbe has been teaching us during this entire series called Key to Redemption, that the lights of the redemption are not new. They're not coming from outside the world. They're coming from the world itself, and they're coming from the darkness itself, and they're coming from the exile itself. Remember, redemptions, the Rebbe's whole theme in all these talks is redemption is exile plus an aleph. When you add God's light into the exile, it brings forth the redemption. And this is the exact thing that he's going to show us over here, that these very dark days are just shells containing within themselves the deepest, highest lights. And we're going to have two such talks. One of them is now on the 17th of Tammuz. The other one is in 3 weeks from now, the one that's for Tisha B'Av. In both these cases, the Rebbe cracks the shell open of the exile, of the darkness, and uncovers the diamond that's in it, the diamond of redemption in it. And he teaches us how to do that, so that when we come to the 3 weeks, we are also equipped with the ability to be able to dismantle the darkness, the shell, to crack the shell, expose the inside. And when we do that, when we are focused that way, all of us together, it has cosmic effect. And the more people think this way, the more it actually helps it actualize and become that way. That's why the Rebbe encourages so much to indulge our mind with thoughts and teachings about the redemption, so that the more people are thinking this way, it becomes a pattern of thought in the world. And once that becomes, it affects, it changes, and it transforms reality. The way we observe things, that's the way it actually, that's what creates reality. So when we observe these days as morbid, dark days, like we've been doing for thousands of years, it keeps it dark and gloomy. But when we can uncover the secret and start viewing it differently, it helps uncover that truth in the world at large. God also is affected by the way we are thinking. He thinks along with us, like we learned in the last talk, how God is a partner with us. And therefore, when we think in a certain way positively, it causes him to think positively as well. And all of that together bring out that we don't have any darkness anymore. We only have the great redemption, which we are waiting to experience any moment. So this is the introduction, and we are ready to go. So the Rebbe says, again, and I'm saying it does not apply in its fullest to this year, because this year Shavuos of Tammuz does not, the 17th of Tammuz does not fall on a Shabbos. The concepts behind it are applicable in general to our attitude towards the 3 weeks. Okay, but what it is going to address is it's going to address this week's Torah portion. Again, this week we have a double Torah portion, Chukas and Balak. The Rebbe, the year of 1991, it was not a double portion. It was only Parshas Balak. Okay, but still, it's still the second half of this week's Torah portion once they are combined. So here we go. In chapter 1, the Rebbe says, what is special about this coming Shabbos is that it is the 17th day of Tammuz, but we don't fast and it gets delayed. So now the Rebbe presents two possibilities of how to view when a fast day falls out on a Shabbos. How do you view what is Shabbos doing to the fast day? The first way of seeing it, and that is of course the easiest way, doesn't take too much probing, just on a superficial observation. We say like this: Shabbos, you cannot be sad. Shabbos, not only can't you be sad, you're supposed to have pleasure and joy on Shabbos. Definitely, Shabbos is a day of pleasure. There's even a source to say that Shabbos is also a day of joy. Although Shabbos is not as joyous as holidays, but it's still a day of joy. Definitely that you're not allowed to have any depression, sadness on Shabbos. Because a fast day elicits, especially fast days that are associated with trouble events in the past, brings into a person certain feelings of sadness and melancholiness. For that reason, we do not fast on Shabbos. So Shabbos suspends the fast, and it just relocates the fast or rolls the fast over to Sunday. But in that sense, the fast remains just as potent, just as dark, just as heavy as it was before. It's just that the benefit is when it falls on Shabbos is we can push it off. We get a suspension. We can suspend it until Sunday, but then eventually we have to still deal with it on Sunday. That is a simplistic understanding, and that's how most Jews look at a fast day that comes on Shabbos. Nothing to pop the champagne bottles for, nothing to get excited about, just push it off. Then there is a deeper situation, and that is the Rebbe says perhaps we can look at it a little deeper and say as follows: when Shabbos rejects a fast or causes the fast to roll further, what it's really doing is that it's empowering us to do away with the fast completely. That means on a special year when a fast day comes out on a Shabbos, we get a special empowerment on that Shabbos. That if we only take that energy, we have the power, we have the potential now to drive the fast away into permanent oblivion, that the fast disappears, it won't be here anymore. Because we know that these fast days one day will cease to be fast days. They will be eradicated completely. So when Shabbos comes in and we push it off for a day, the Rebbe says it doesn't really only mean for a day. It's the beginning of and part of and an empowerment that if we really accelerate and we really focus all of our energies, because Shabbos is helping us out already, Shabbos is kind of knocking off part of the fast, we have the abilities through proper focus and actions or whatever it is to kind of dismiss the fast completely. Where do we find that we have any, maybe someone can argue and say, this is completely God's business. There's nothing to do with us. Whenever God decides to end the fast day, to cancel it, it will be canceled, but that's it. And why in the world would you in any way say that delaying a fast for a day just because you have a technical difficulty, that it has something to do with the override of the fast completely? So the Rebbe brings from a Talmudic statement, a chapter in the Talmud, a passage in the Talmud, the Masechtas Megillah, 5th page on the second side of the page, Daf Hey, Amud Beis. The Gemara says over there that Rabbi, who was the author of the Mishnah, did 3 things that were pretty courageous, if you can say. What were this? And they caused people to raise their eye, caused people to be like shocked. Rabbi did these 3 things. What did he do? The first thing was he went to the bathhouse on Shivasa B'Tammuz in Tzipori. Rabbeinu Malchus lived in Tzipori. Shabbos, the online crowd cannot participate in this unless you're in the neighborhood over here. But Shabbos afternoons, we give a class on various different sages of the Talmud. And this past Shabbos, we discussed Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, who was the teacher of the author of the Mishnah, Rabbeinu HaKadosh. And we discussed how they lived in the Galil, in the northern part, in the mountains of the northern part of Israel, and they lived in a town called Tzipori. So Rebbe went openly to a bathhouse to shower, when? On the 17th of Tammuz. And that was kind of a sense of a dismissal of the fast. The second thing the Gemara says Rebbe did was, Rebbe canceled Tisha B'Av. So the rabbis, and then it says a third thing. I slipped my mind right now. What was the third thing that Rebbe did? 3 things that he did. So the Talmud immediately jumps and says he canceled Tisha B'Av? How do you cancel Tisha B'Av? Tisha B'Av is, it's biblical, meaning it's written in scripture. You can't just come ahead and just dismiss Tisha B'Av. So the Talmud says, no. One of the sages come along and immediately clarifies. It wasn't like he just said, no more Tisha B'Av, no more day of mourning fast. but rather it was a Shabbos, that Tisha B'Av fell out on a Shabbos. And therefore, halachically, the fast, being that you can't fast on Shabbos unless it's Yom Kippur. Let's not forget, I'm saying a rule over here now, you remember. There's one fast, a biblical fast, Yom Kippur, which we fast even it's on Shabbos. Okay? And it happens many times. Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, we fast on Shabbos. And Yom Kippur is not a day, the fasting is not of sadness. It's tshuva, it's repentance, it's the God's instruction, it's a mitzvah, it overrides Shabbos. That's it. But we're talking about the fast days that are for negativity, for events that happen, commemorating dark things. So then, Rabbeinu, so when it came on a Shabbos, you can't fast. So Rabbi decided, and this was his opinion, that you know what? Once we're not keeping the 9th of Av, we're anyways not fasting the fast on the right days, let's eliminate it completely. And he said, Hoyel v'itcha. Once it was once it was pushed away, Yidacha, let it be pushed away completely. The rabbis did not agree with him. And meaning, and what does that mean? He didn't want to cancel Tisha B'Av forever. That year, he wanted to leave Sunday be a regular Sunday. Shabbos kind of canceled Tisha B'Av. Shabbos didn't delay Tisha B'Av to the next day, to the 10th day of Av. Shabbos completely dismissed or canceled Tisha B'Av for this year. The rabbis did not accept Rebbe's opinion, and therefore we do not do that when Shabbos falls out on Tisha B'Av. We just push it off to Sunday. But Rebbe was of the opinion that once Shabbos pushed it off completely. Now let me just tell you the footnote. The Rebbe says the reason Rebbe was the one doing it, out of all of the sages, why Rebbe? Because Rabbeinu HaKadosh was a great candidate to be Mashiach. As the sages say, that if Mashiach was going to come in those days, it was going to be Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who was from the tribe. He was a descendant of King David. He met all the qualifications. He suffered enormously in his life. That's one of the things it says about Mashiach. He was a perfect tzaddik. And so the Rebbe says that's the reason why Rabbeinu HaKadosh he had it with Tisha B'Av. And whenever he was able to cancel Tisha B'Av, he was into canceling it. Why? Because Mashiach, that's part of Mashiach's job. Mashiach's job is to remove the sad days, to remove all sadness from the world, all sadness, all tears, all pain, all misery, all exile, and all the stuff that come along with it. And part of that work is that you dismantle the day that is the morbid day, the day that the sadness kicks in. So you try to undo that. So Rabbi, of course, couldn't undo it completely because it wasn't yet the days of Mashiach. But because he had Mashiach's soul, it's for that reason he had the seed of Mashiach inside of him. He had this how do you call it? This thing, what do you call it? Nit to pick. I forgot what you call it when you say. He had this thing to pick with Tisha B'Av, and he as much as he can would try to annul Tisha B'Av. Again, the halacha is not like Rebbe, and we do fast Tisha B'Av. And Rebbe also didn't mean again to annihilate it, to remove Tisha B'Av completely, but only from that year. But we, even in a year that comes in a Shabbos, we keep Tisha B'Av. So now, going back, so the Rebbe says, but what do you see from there? You see that when Shabbos is tinkering, that there was at least an opinion that felt that we can eradicate it completely. So what does the Rebbe derive? Our Rebbe, what is he deriving from Rebbe? What he's saying is, you see that when the Shabbos is not just, not allowing you, it's a no fast zone. Don't fast on me. Shabbos is doing a job on Tisha B'Av. It's trying to dismiss it. It's trying to fight Tisha B'Av. We'll see why Shabbos does that in a moment. But that's what Shabbos is doing. Now, if Shabbos is able to overpower the super dark day, which is Tisha B'Av, then Shabbos is definitely able to overpower a much weaker darkness, which is the 17th of Tammuz. The 17th of Tammuz is also a sad day, but it doesn't equal Tisha B'Av. The fast is much easier. You don't fast at night. It's not a 24-hour fast. You only fast during the daytime. You're allowed to wash. You're allowed to wear shoes. You're allowed to engage in marital relations. You're allowed to put ointments. Things that are forbidden on Tisha B'Av are permitted on the 17th of Tammuz. So In general, it's considered a much lighter fast. So definitely, Shabbos has the ability to weaken it. Now, when we say that Shabbos is weakening it, what does that mean? Because Shabbos begins the process of what is going to be in the days of Mashiach. In the days of Mashiach, we're going to dismantle these fast days completely. We're going to eradicate them forever and ever. So Shabbos is like a little bit of that. We're soon going to see Shabbos as a day. Every Shabbos has a little bit of Mashiach energy in it. The Shabbos is connected to the future. If that's the case, because we know the future is called Shabbos. So every Shabbos is a mini Shabbos. So if the big Shabbos of the future, there won't be Tisha B'Av and there won't be fast days. So when the mini Shabbos comes, it does a mini weakening of it, and it's considered a little bit already of that, or of that nullification of the fast. So what is the Rebbe's main idea over here? Don't look at the Shabbos just as a bumping the fast. Shabbos is bringing Mashiach into the Tisha B'Av. It's weakening the Tisha B'Av. It's weakening the 17th of Tammuz. And every time it comes out on Shabbos, it will never be as potent, as strong, as dark as it was previously, because Shabbos has now weakened it. Now, the Rebbe brings a statement from the Maimonides, where the Maimonides says in the laws of fast, all these fasts are going to be nullified in the days of Mashiach. It's actually the Rambam that we learned today. I think today. I know that today we're learning the laws of fast days. So it's we're learning chapter 2, 3, and 4. Might be, or maybe it's tomorrow, but I didn't learn that Rambam yet. But it says over there that the fasts are going to be nullified when Mashiach comes. But not only that, Rambam takes it even further. These days are going to become festive days. They're going to become Yom Tovim. They're going to become days of joy. They're going to become days of celebration. And he quotes a verse. So said God, the Lord of hosts. Tomer Revi, the fast of the 4th month, this is the 4th month, Tammuz. And so the 5th month and the other months, the other days that are fast, the fast of the 10th month, will be to the house of Judah, which is to the Jewish people, to joy and to celebration, and to festivals. That's the verse Rambam brings. So you see, that's what's going to happen in Messianic times. So Shabbos, what is Shabbos doing? Shabbos is according to the second understanding that the Rebbe is saying, is that Shabbos is weakening the fast, and it's beginning already to affect the effect that Mashiach is going to have, to do two things: eradicate the fast, and even more, flip it over and turn it into a happy day. So similar to that, we can say happens every Shabbos when it comes out on a fast day. It's at least in a little way beginning to do that. In other words, now the Rebbe presents the same argument, but he gives us a little bit, gives it a different twist. He says, here is the question. When Shabbos and a fast day come together, and Shabbos dominates, what's the dominion of Shabbos over the fast day? One possibility is Shabbos, because it's a day of tremendous positivity, overpowers the negativity of the day. So the positive, it's almost like the light overpowers the darkness. A little bit of light overpowers a lot of darkness. That's one way of looking at it. A deeper way of looking at it is that Shabbos doesn't cancel the fast. Shabbos discovers the positivity that's in the fast itself and reveals and empowers the inner potential that's in the fast. In the first possibility, Shabbos just shuts the fast down. I'm not dealing with you, I'm shutting you down. The second possibility, Shabbos of course does that, but Shabbos just does that to the external of the fast. Inside every fast day, inside every negative, what seems to be a negative day, is really a diamond, is buried a potential for the greatest goodness. What Shabbos does is that Shabbos empowers that goodness to come out. In this case, what would that mean? That when Shabbos comes out on the 17th of Tammuz, We don't say to a person, don't mention that it's the 17th of Tammuz, because that's sadness. That would be if Shabbos just canceled. Let's not mention the 17th of Tammuz, just dismiss it. Better is, no. You can speak about it's the 17th of Tammuz, but discover the jewels and the gems that are buried in the 17th of Tammuz. That really in the 17th of Tammuz lies the ultimate power of the redemption. It's just, it's obscured with a shell. On Shabbos, there is no shell, so Shabbos highlights and brings out the good of the fast. So to explain this, he says, let's first take a look at the fast itself and see who says that a fast has something good to it. So the Rebbe first introduces a very, very interesting idea. And he says like this: fast days in general, Jewish fast days, externally are negative. And each fast day has its list of negativities that happen on that day. Tisha B'Av has 5, 7, like the spies came, and it was decreed upon the Jewish people that they're going to stay in the desert. That whole generation is going to die. The first temple was destroyed. The second temple was destroyed. The time of the Roman, after the second temple was destroyed, about close to 50 or so years later, there was a huge rebellion against the Romans, and the Jews wanted to take back their land. In the end, the Romans, led by Bar Kochava, the person presumed to be the Mashiach, the Romans came and had a very hard time. At the end, they were able to put down the revolt, and then they massacred millions of Jews, all surrounding a city called Beitar. And that too happened in Tisha B'Av. So these were a bunch of events that happened on Tisha B'Av, horrible events, terrible things. And 17th of Tammuz, also full of negativity. Moshe, that was the day that the golden calf was worshipped. Moshe broke the tablets. And then later, the legions came and broke into the city. And then there was a burning of the Torah scroll, and then there was a placement of a idol inside the sanctuary, inside the temple. Terrible things. The Mishnah in Masechtas Tainos lists 5 negative things. Then there is the fast day after Rosh Hashanah. There was an assassination of the last governor that the Babylonians appointed in Israel to keep somewhat of a Jewish presence there. The Babylonians, is during the end of the first temple period, the Jews, people over there killed the governor. His name was Gedaliah, and as a result, assassinated him. As a result of that, it brought upon the complete exile. And then, of course, there was the 10th day of Tavis, is the day that the Babylonians in the first temple laid siege, surrounded the city of Jerusalem. So we listed over here all the negative events on all these days, and it's a negative day. Usually you get a headache, you're not feeling so well, you keep on looking at the time, you're looking at how many more hours you have to fast. It's not a happy day. Okay. But if you look in deeper, you find out that a fast is really called a day of goodwill. A fast is called a day of goodwill. Yom Ratzon Lashem. This is a verse in Isaiah, Yeshaya Nun Ches Hey. Isaiah 58, verse number 5. Yeshayahu, over there it says that a fast is a Yom Ratzon Lashem. There it says a question. Is God going to accept your fast days as a day of goodwill? And that's because they were fake fasting. But if you're fasting with sincerity, the fast is called a day of goodwill. What does that mean? It's a day that has extra power to elicit God's grace and God's kindness and God's goodness more than any other day. And that's a potential that's within the day. And that's positive, very positive. So much so. And where can you see it? So the Rebbe says, let's take a look at the 17th of Tammuz. Although on the external, it's a morbid day. But the very fact that out of all the days of Tammuz, the day that it was chosen, that fell out to be the fast, is the 17th. And in Hebrew, the number 17 is the same numeric value as the word Tov, which Tov means good. So from all the days in a month, There is one day that's called the good day of the month, and that's the 17th day. It's the good day. And yet, is that the day that the darkness fell upon? That the fast day is commemorated on the good day of the month? So that's very telling. What is that telling? That there is a goodness over here. The goodness is camouflaged, concealed by the darkness, but it really is a good day. And then the Rebbe says in the footnote, now what happens when it falls on Shabbos and we can't fast on the good day, on the 17th day? Then it rolls over to the 18th day. 18, everybody knows the Hebrew word chai, life, which means over here as well, it emphasizes life, which life is good. And also in the fast itself, it emphasizes that the fast is not life draining, but the fast is life giving. And that's the subject onto its own. That on Yom Kippur, for instance, when we fast, the fast is not diminishing our life, although physically we might feel weak, but on a deeper, much deeper inner level, the fast day itself is giving us, sustaining us with much more energy than all the food we can eat, than the best eating day that we can possibly have. The fast day is giving us a divine, godly drip of the best nutrients. It's enlivening us. So when the Rebbe says, when the fast day of the 17th of Tammuz gets rolled over to the 18th, it's also good. So it's good if it's the 17th and good on the 18th. The fact that Bahashgacha Pratis, by divine providence, the negative day of Tammuz fell out on the day, which is the word good written all over it, God is hinting to us that the day is really good. What does that mean? Internally, it's good. Externally, there is a good potential over there. Externally, it's bad. It's heavy, it's hard, it's got a lot of darkness to it. Based on this, the Rebbe, so what do we have? We have a fast day is really a powerful day of goodness, but it is encased in an encasement, an external encasement of darkness. Now that's an external encasement that's not easy to break. For 2,000 years, we are still dealing with this shell. It's not a little flimsy shell. It's a serious shell. We have to always remember that it's covering on an amazing good potential. Based on this, the Rebbe says we can explain what the Talmud says in Tractate Rosh Hashanah. He made reference to this actually earlier. So in Tractate Rosh Hashanah, it says that, page 18, also on the top of the second side of the page. Over there it says that when the Talmud is trying to figure out why Rabbi was going to the shower house publicly on the 17th of the bathhouse on the 17th of Tammuz, which is a fast day. So the Gemara says we're talking about the 17th of Tammuz nowadays, in which we were in exile. So it's exile on the one hand, but on the other hand, they weren't under a particular time of harsh decrees. The Jews went through all kinds of times. When it was very, very difficult and harsh decrees right upon them at the time, there is no question that the 17th of Tammuz, the Talmud says, it needs to be, everybody has to fast. However, if we're not in a time of peace, which means we haven't yet reached the redemption, and there's still war going on, and there's still darkness going on. However, it's not particularly a bad time. Things are rather kind of neutral. So the Talmud says, whoever wants can fast, and whoever doesn't want doesn't have to fast. Kind of the fast of the 17th of Tammuz becomes optional. It's no more obligatory. Now, when the Talmud says that, let's remember that's not accepted as the halacha. Today's days, everybody needs to fast on the 17th of Tammuz. It is not considered a fast that is already nullified. We need the full revelation of Mashiach when that is going to happen. Until that time, we have to still obey Shulchan Aruch, which tells us that it's a fast, even though we're not living in the worst of times. There's trouble and there's problems. We're not living in the worst of times. And in any case, But the Talmud says like this: this idea that Shavasa B'Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, is a swinging day. Sometimes everybody has to fast. Other times you don't have to fast. And other times it's dependent if you want to fast or don't want to fast. What does it depend on? In the time when there's peace, no fast at all. In the time when there is no peace and there's decrees, everybody must fast. In the time when it's neither like this and neither like that, so whoever wants to fast can fast. Where does the Talmud derive it from? The Talmud derives it from a verse, the verse that we quoted before from Maimonides. It says that the day of Chaim Hashem Tzvakas, the day of the fast of the 4th month, will become to the Jewish people will be l'sasin u'lesimcha. So the sage, it will be a day of festivities. So the sage said, I don't understand. How can you have the same day and you're calling it a day of fasting and you're calling it a day of joy? It's like, how can the day have these two elements? So that's why the Talmud answers. And it says like this: when there's peace in the world, that means there's no exile, it's joyous. When there is exile in the world, then it's fast. And if the exile is particularly being nasty, then we have to fast. If it's kacha, like this and like that, it's not, we're not feeling the brunt of the darkness, things are relatively calm, then you don't have to. If you want, you could fast. That's how the sages derive it. But the Rebbe, based on what he's saying, so then, with the way we're dividing this verse, is we're saying it's not simultaneously a fast day, which means negative, and a happy day, which is positive. Not simultaneous. It depends in which era you're living in. You're living in the time of redemption. It's a great day. You're living in a time of exile. It's a terrible day. But the Rebbe says, based on what we just explained now, that that's not the case. The very day itself is both all the time. It's considered a fast day. It's considered a happy day, because even in the time of the darkest exile, it's still a happy day in the sense that it has the potential for redemption more than any other day of the year. This day is a potential holiday. It's just that it's obscured, it's hidden. Eventually, it's going to become a holiday, not because it will be metamorphosized later. It's because now it is that way already. It's just now that potential has not been tapped. It's not been revealed yet. It needs to be revealed. It needs to be uncovered. That's why it's on the 17th day. 17 is Tov. It was from the very beginning. It was always on the 17th day, which 17 is good. It is a good day. It's just that the goodness has not yet been extracted. We haven't yet, mined it. We haven't mined the day yet to take out the gold and the diamonds or whatever. The treasure chest that is buried in this day has not yet been mined. But it already is a good day in potential. But externally, it's full of dirt on the top and darkness. And when Mashiach will be here, and the Geula the full redemption will be here, all the negativity that's on the outside will have been blown away, and you're only going to be left with its positive interior. Fine. So that's how we understand the concept regarding fast days, that the fast day itself is a day of goodwill. And on the 17th of Tammuz, he already showed us what the day of goodwill is. Now let's go back to Shabbos. So all of this is when the 17th of Tammuz comes out in the middle of the week. So then we have to treat it as such. Since it's exile, we have to treat it with fasting, although we know that inside of it that has a potential. However, when it comes out on Shabbos, and Shabbos does not allow for the darkness to take effect, so the shell and the negative and the hardship, the pain, the sorrow, the fast, all those elements that come along with it, Shabbos knocks it off. Once Shabbos knocks off the negativity, now does Shabbos just leave the hidden goodness hidden, untapped? We can argue. Shabbos removes the negative, but it doesn't do anything else. No, because Shabbos is so positive, the positivity of Shabbos connects to the positivity that's within the day, and it stirs up the goodness. Shabbos helps bubble. It helps the hidden oil, so to speak, that's hidden in the day surface. It brings it up. Shabbos pulls it out. Why does Shabbos pull it out? Because Shabbos is a day of joy, and Shabbos is a day of pleasure. So the hidden pleasure that's in the day gets attracted to Shabbos. More than this, Shabbos is also a little foretaste of the future. Since Shabbos is the foretaste of the future, it's Mashiach. When the fast day, let me ask you, when the fast day is going to hear the sounding blast of the shofar of Mashiach, what's going to happen to the inner soul of the fast day? The inner soul of the fast day is going to wake up to the sound of Mashiach. So Shabbos comes and Shabbos rattles the noise of Mashiach subtly. It's not the big sound of the shofar, it's the small sound of the shofar. So the goodness that's in the day gets awakened. So it's not just that Shabbos is removing the negative, and it's not that Shabbos is going to flip the day over. Shabbos is just going to bring out a potential that's there already in the day, help it surface and actualize it. Every Shabbos does it. And therefore, it's a little messianic when Shabbos comes out of Tisha B'Av. Now, practically, where does that manifest? Practically, on the fast day, on Shabbos, where do you sense that not only are you negating the darkness of the day, but you're causing the inner juices of the day to flow, the inner light of the day to surface? Where do you see that? It says it emphasizes it in the festivities and eating that we do on Shabbos. We all know that Shabbos we're supposed to eat and drink much more than we do during the week. And we're supposed to make our home, the meals are very, 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 with abundance and tasty and so on and so forth. The question is, when Shabbos comes out of the fast day, are we supposed to at least tone it down a little bit? Let it be a little bit of a sign that this is not such a happy time. So the halacha is that even on Shabbos Tisha B'Av, and even when Shabbos comes in, and we know that the most serious time of Tisha B'Av is right by nightfall. Very, very intense time of Tisha B'Av. So much so that in a regular Tisha B'Av, before Tisha B'Av starts, we sit on the floor already, we eat an egg with ashes. It's a very potent, it's a very dark moment. I feel horrible just those moments. Every year, this darkness overcomes me. Not on Tisha B'Av, but like the minutes leading into Tisha B'Av I just dread it every year. Right? And I'm sensing, okay, Shafartik, let's be done with this. But in any case, on Shabbos comes out on Tisha B'Av, the halacha is, the law is, that by the third meal, you can bring onto your table, this is what the law says, even like the meals of King Solomon. King Solomon was as wealthy as it gets. His royal table was filled with every kind of delicacy. So the halacha is that when Shabbos comes out on Tisha B'Av and you get to the third meal, even the third meal, which is so close to the actual beginning of the fast, which got pushed off to the 10th day, you can treat it like a royal feast. The deeper understanding of that, the Rebbe says, so the Rebbe says it's very possible to say that when Shabbos comes out on a fast, we're supposed to make an extra effort to make sure that our food on Shabbos, on that Shabbos, is even with greater abundance than we would have on a regular Shabbos. Meaning not only don't we decrease the Shabbos, we actually have to increase it. Why? No one, and this is the Rebbe's own thing. It doesn't say so in Jewish law. It's the Rebbe's own little oomph. The Rebbe says it's possible to say that that's what we should do. So anybody that's listening to this, when Shabbos comes out on a fast, remember, it's a good thing to do, to buy extra, to make the Shabbos extra special more than any other time. And the reason the Rebbe gives is that no one should think that there is even a possibility for the fast. So you have to do extra partying. on a Shabbos like this. But on a deeper level, hear this. The Rebbe says the reason you're feasting on Shabbos when it comes out in the three on the 17th of Tammuz or on Tisha B'Av is not only because Shabbos calls for a feast, it's because the fast day is calling for a feast. The feast is not only commemorating, it's Shabbos. Last week was Shabbos, and next week was Shabbos. This week was Shabbos, and Shabbos you're supposed to party. Okay, Shabbos we party, but we party with a limit. But when Mashiach will come, the fast days will become party days and days of feasting. So now, even though we're not yet we have it, hopefully in a minute from now we will be, but as of now till now, we have not been yet in the full-fledged redemption. And therefore, the fast days have not flipped over yet. But since when Shabbos comes out on the fast day, that's the Rebbe's twist. Since when Shabbos comes out, the Shabbos is already bringing out the messianic element of the fast day, the Mashiach element of the fast day. So now it is already a holiday. It's already a future holiday. So bring out the beef, bring out the fish, bring out the wines. Treat it like the biggest holiday. Not only because of Shabbos, but because of the festivities. Get a little foretaste of this holiday of the time of Mashiach. And the Rebbe adds, then he goes wild. The Rebbe literally is going over here in places that no one has ever gone. And the Rebbe says, hey, you know what? Not only is it part of your Shabbos meal when it comes out on a fast day, you're getting a little bit of a foretaste of the joy and the festivities of the days of Mashiach. But we know that when Mashiach will come, there will be a super great feast, which God is going to make to all the righteous in the times of Mashiach, to all the saintly in the time of Mashiach, and all the Jewish people are called the saintly. And God is going to make a big feast. And it describes over there this magnificent fish, and a magnificent animal, wild boar, in which the flesh will be eaten at this feast, and wines that have been preserved from the 6 days of creation. God is going to pop the bottles of the most ancient wines, the best of the best. So although the Rebbe says that all these descriptions of feasting are primarily spiritual in nature, that means God is going to open up for us the deepest spiritual delights and experiences of wine and meat and fish in the spiritual realm, whatever that means. In general, it explains God will give us the taste of the most deepest secrets of the Torah, which is compared to eating. Yet, the Rebbe insists that it does not negate the physical party as well. Since the messianic experience is going to be not only for the soul, but also with the body, so much so that all the bodies of the past generations are going to be resurrected and their souls are going to return to the body, which emphasizes the importance of the physical. Therefore, the feast, along with all of its spiritual meaning, is also a physical, delightful feast. So the Rebbe therefore wants to go so far and say that when you sit down on Shabbos during a fast day, and you make sure you ask your wife or whoever is cooking for you, or you go to the store and you look for the fattiest piece of pastrami, or or you look for really good sushi, or whatever type of fish you can think of that you really like, and you bring an extra expensive bottle of wine that you generally would not, afford for yourself. But you say, and even for a regular Shabbos, you wouldn't do that. But on Shabbos Tisha B'Av, or on Shabbos of the 17th of Tammuz, you say, you know what? Let's make an extra party. So the Rebbe says, in that wine that you're drinking and you're saying l'chaim, in that fish and in that meat that you are consuming, you should know there's a little bit of that future meal that's already there. It's already contained in the meal that you're eating. You're really there. You're not feeling it, but you're really there. You're partaking in the great feast. This is novel. This is wild. So this is what the Rebbe is saying. So what is the Rebbe doing to Shavuos b'Tammuz? What the Rebbe is doing? He's making our regular, what seems to be exile meals, and he's turning them into the meal of the future and the enjoyment of the future. Because you're really there, the Rebbe said. Because why? Shabbos is revealing, shining the special Shabbos light, which lights up the potential of messianic times and messianic blessings that are here in the day. It's the day of goodness. All the good light is here. It's just hidden. It just needs to be extracted and excavated. So Shabbos is doing it. It's highlighting it. So you're already there. So enjoy. Be there. And especially, the Rebbe continues, especially since when you continue the 3 meals of Shabbos and you do a 4th meal. When Shabbos, now you can't do this on Tisha B'Av, when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, because when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos and it goes from the 9th to the 10th, the fast starts on Saturday night. Shabbos itself, you can't fast, as mentioned earlier, but as soon as you end, Shabbos ends, actually when the stars come out, you're not allowed to eat anymore. Actually from sunset. From sunset and onward, one is not allowed to eat anymore. You have to stop eating. And then, when the stars are out, and so it's fast. So you can't have that extra meal. However, on the 17th of Tammuz, which is only a fast during daylight hours, not at night. So Saturday night, even though technically it's the day of the fast, but you're still allowed to eat. So therefore, one should eat a 4th meal, which we're supposed to do every Shabbos. It's called Malava Malka, which means accompanying the queen. Shabbos goes away, we want to honor her by an extra meal. So Shabbos altogether has 4 meals. Friday night meal, and then Shabbos lunch, and then Shabbos late afternoon called the Sudat Shlishit, and then after that, Motzai Shabbos, it is, people usually are full and whatever, but it is the right thing to do to wash, to sit down, because it's a very special meal. And that meal is called the meal of David Malka Mashiach. It's Mashiach's meal. King David together with Mashiach. David, Malka, and 2 of them are unified. David, Malka, Mashiach. So the Rebbe says, on the 17th of Tammuz, when it comes out on a fast day like this, and you eat that meal, you are completely in Mashiach territory. You're really connecting high in those levels. Any case, so now he says we can connect all of this to the portion of the week. This whole idea that this Shabbos gives us the power to flip over the fast and the darkness, and to turn it into and to experience only the inner part of the fast, which are really the futuristic element of it. The holidays of it is actually written all over this week's Torah portion. What's the portion this week? The portion of Balak. Who is Balak? Balak is the king of Moab, who felt threatened by the Jewish people coming close to his territory. Although the Jews were warned by God not to trespass into the Moab territory, the Moabim were still affrighted, because right before this, the Jews took down the 2 mighty kings that were protecting the whole region. The guys that were protecting the regions were Sichon and Og, these 2 giants. Moses waged war against them and killed them both and decimated their armies. So Moab felt exposed. So the king of Moab, his name was Balak, felt that he needs protection, and he knew that physical might will not work, so he decided to elicit spiritual assistance. He called a prophet, a Gentile prophet whose name was Bilam, who was known that had enormous power in his mouth in which he can bless and curse, and he hired him to curse the Jewish people. Bilam comes, and God first warns him not to go, but Bilam so wants to, because first of all, he hated the Jews. He was an anti-Semite on his own. Secondly, Balak promised him a fortune for doing it. Anyways, God in the end allowed him to go, but it ending up being a misfire. It backfired. Why? Because every time Balak brought him to a place where he can see the Jewish people and utter a curse, blessings came out of his mouth. And God flipped the curses over into blessings. So the Rebbe says like this, part of the blessings that Bilam gives the Jewish people is actually messianic. He is one of the most explicit prophecies regarding the Mashiach times, the ultimate redemption. In the Chumash, in the 5 books of Moshe, you don't have too much about Mashiach. There's a little bit, not too much. But in the prophets, there's a whole lot, all about the time of the Geulah, the time of the redemption. The little bit that there is in the 5 books of Moshe is in the end of Deuteronomy a little bit. There's other few places, a little hints to it. But one of the prime sections is in the prophecies of Bilam, in this week's Torah portion of Balak, in which he speaks about, he says, Arenu v'loyata, I see him but not now. Ashureno v'loykarov, I behold him but he's not close. That means I'm looking into far away at the end times. He's looking at our times. This is what he was envisioning. He's seeing what's going on now. He saw Putin and he saw Biden and he saw all these guys. All today's players. He got exactly scan of the whole situation. And he says, I see him, but not now. I behold him in the future. The star will shoot forth from Jacob. Become Shevet mi Yisrael, and a ruling power will get up from Israel. He will smite the princes of Moab. The Karkar b'nei Shais, and he's going to uproot all the children of Seth, which is really all of humanity. Whatever, it goes on and on and on, these verses. So Maimonides interprets these verses as various interpretations. It's all poetic. Maimonides says that half of the sentences are referring to King David, which Maimonides refers to as the first Messiah, Mashiach HaRishon, the first anointed one. And the second half of every verse is referring to the second Messiah, which is Mashiach, who is going to complete the job and is going to reign in the entire world. So the Rebbe says this week's Torah portion is all about Mashiach. So you see Mashiach is here in the Shabbos. But how did the prophecies about Mashiach come about this week in the Torah portion? They weren't direct prophecies about Mashiach. They were a derivative. They were in other words, initially the one who was uttering them was trying to curse. The curses were turned over into blessings. And that's how we got the messianic prophecies. So what is that emphasizing, the Rebbe says? Take a look. It's emphasizing exactly what we're talking about. Taking the exile, taking the morbidity of the fast days, of the gloomy days, talking about the dark things that happen. And what do we say? What does Shabbos do? Shabbos negates the negative. Not only that, brings out the positive, which is literally this idea of Hashem is flipping over the curse, lebracha, to a blessing. We're getting rid of the darkness and the sadness, and we're bringing forth the blessing. And that's the reason why this parsha is consistent with what we're learning about what happens on this Shabbos. The Rebbe says this also, however, continues into the next Torah portion, which we start reading by Mincha. By Mincha, every Shabbos, we read 2 Torah portions. In the morning, we read the section of this week. And on the Mincha, which is the afternoon services, we start reading the next Torah portion. So the Rebbe says, what's the next Torah portion? Pashas Pinchas. Pinchas is the guy who, because Bilam, this wicked prophet, when he saw that it didn't work out for him, and he's going home with shame, made one last attempt, which was sadly successful. He told Balak that if you want to harm the Jewish people, get them to sin. That's how God will be upset at them. And what he did was he suggested to him that he should have all the Moabite girls go out and seduce the Jewish men. And they made a whole trick. It wasn't like they just paraded out there. They didn't just go out with a pride parade, which is kind of what they were doing, but there at least there was girls saying they're girls. Now they're totally whacked out. But in any case, so but there was a whole trick, which I'm not going to get into now how they did it. And eventually what they did was they made a fair, a big Orange County fair, whatever kind of fair it was. And they had booths and people were coming to buy. And they had old ladies selling wares, and the Jews were very careful with what they looked, and they had all old women sitting outside. And when they started talking about the merchandise, they said, "Oh, you want better? Come inside." And they would bring them inside. Inside, there was a seductive girl sitting there, and she would become the saleswoman. And before you know it, she would, okay, by this time, the guy was already inside the tent with the girl, private, this and that. And his evil inclination got the better of him. So this was the sin. This is what the Moabites did. It spread like wildfire in the Jewish camp, all the way that one of the leaders of the Jewish camp, which was a prince, took a Moabite princess and was gonna marry her, and he definitely was gonna have, and he had relations with her. And Pinchas, the grandson of Aaron, took a spear and he killed him and the princess in one shot. And by doing that, he stopped the craziness. Everybody stepped back. And then later he caused God's wrath to diminish, because God was so angry at Israel that there was a plague and hundreds of people were dying. And he stopped the plague by doing what he did. So that's the name of the parsha. Now, who is this Pinchas? The sages tell us that Pinchas, who's living at that time, turns up later in history. The same person, he lived a long life, but he's Elijah the prophet. Now we know Elijah the prophet is the one who's going to herald in the redemption. He's supposed to come to tell us that Mashiach is about to arrive. So when the name of the parsha, the next portion, is Pinchas, it's also redemption. So you see the Mashiach energy dominant. And then the Rebbe goes ahead and says there's another 3 things in Parshas Pinchas, where all 3 of them emphasize the redemption, but we are going to leave that for part number 2. Okay.